Ha 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 ha! Merry New Year! That means that it's beef jerky time. No, not really. That just means that it's time for implicit bias and new whiskeys for 2025. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon, and this is the first episode of Implicit Bias in the new year. The crew and I are very happy to welcome you into the Mr. Lester's TSPL for more solving of the world's problems, more weekly whiskeys, more of not trusting us, and more sophomoric humor, jokes, drinks, and so forth. So as we start a new year, there's much to distract us, so much to take our eye off the proverbial ball. I mean, we're about to inaugurate a new president. We're worried about the digestive systems of animals changing the climate. We might be stoking the fires under issues that we thought were possibly resolving themselves. And we're letting people who are more likely to be mentally ill set the narrative while we're wasting money in historically horrible ways. All while proving that if we set our minds to almost anything, we can do what seems impossible. We'll get to all those stories in the next 2 hours. But before we do, we've got to focus on more than just what's going on, but possibly why it's going on. The holidays, a lot of times, can help us answer many of the questions of the universe, in our opinion. And one of those revelations hit us during the 2024 Christmas-New Year's break. Partially during an unfortunate situation. See, while the holidays roll on, so does life for so many of us. And a friend needed some prayers during this time. So as many Catholics often do, rosary beads got broken out. Now, for those who don't know, each set of 10 prayers are associated with a mystery or a snapshot of Jesus' life to contemplate while you pray. It was that last decade of the rosary that hit maybe a little harder than a Christmas credit card bill. See, that last decade outlines the story of a 12-year-old whose parents left him behind, only for his parents to discover days later, yes, days later, that Mary and Joseph had lost their son. I mean, imagine losing the Son of God. His own parents lost him, which is kind of the point. If his own parents can lose him, so can we. And we do, all the time. We, here in the TSPL, we lose him multiple times daily. Anger, frustration, fear, anxiety, depravity, selfishness, they all come from us losing God, losing faith, and forgetting that we should be focused on better, centered on that part of ourselves that makes us a better human being every day. See, much like the story goes, Jesus' parents left him behind, thinking he was with them, just like we do. We think he's still with us. But in reality, we leave him behind us every single day. Now, there's a happy ending to the story, however. Yes, his parents do find him. They find him in the temple. His response to them when they got upset with him, it was to tell basically all of us where to go when we lose faith or lose God in all of our lives. Jesus says, where else would he be but in his Father's house? See, we've all got these problems in the world. We'll solve them here, but we can't give you solace. The only place to find that is in faith. We'll recognize this week that the collective we has walked away from faith one way or another, or for another word, we've walked away from unequivocal truth. We'll urge those who look to lead this country in 2025 to find their direction where it matters, not in people, but by realizing that walking away from God can cause the strife we've experienced as of late. We urge anyone who leads others to find that inspiration from faith and not from folly. Now, we'll do our best not to fill you with folly this week. We do hope to outline some of the stuff that has happened in the last few weeks, as well as in 2024. We do hope to have some fun with these stories. We hope to give you some great new weekly whiskeys, solve some problems of the world, and hopefully we'll identify your implicit bias. Welcome back to Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon, coming to you from the Mr. Lester's TSPL. That's the top secret podcast lair for the uninitiated. Welcome to the show for 2025. Let me introduce you to the crew that we've got before we start diving into our weekly whiskey number one this week. sitting in the chair much like mine, and you might notice if you're a regular that I've got George T on my right, but it's so we can all actually look at each other better. And this actually seems to work a little bit better already. He is Caleb Morse. He is the Rustic Renegade. He has been not necessarily MIA, but we all kind of had to take a little hiatus from the show just because, man, the Christmas season was really, really busy, Caleb.
It's great that it's busy because that one means that we're all getting to spend time with our family, but two, that we're all hopefully being successful, whatever that means to you as an individual.
Agreed. So thank you. Yes, great to have you back.
Always
sitting at the bar. Two people who are not new to the TSPL. Sitting on your left is Danny Izzo. Danny, it's a pleasure to have you back.
Always good to be here.
You might need the microphone to say
Oh,
that.
yeah. Oh, that's right. This is radio
Correct.
and television, right?
Correct. We are radio and on now YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, the whole 9 yards.
Well, to quote myself, it's always good to be here.
What's that, Caleb?
Walker put us on Grindr too, I think.
Oh, dear Lord. Yeah, he probably did. Knowing Walker, I mean, that's his go-to social media app, right, Walker? Anyway, we don't care. Also at the bar, he is Jonathan Broussard. We had a nickname for Jonathan, and I can't seem to remember what it was now.
It's gone.
It's gone? It can't be
The
gone.
powers that be had me do a little bit of editing, so you may not see it anymore.
In other words, the wife got involved.
You know, I get the last word in my house all the time. Yes, ma'am is the last word.
Yeah, I get it. I've been married a while as well, and love it because it's kind of the way you stay married. All right, so let's dive into our weekly whiskey because we have one that is somewhat hard to find. I hadn't seen it a whole bunch. I saw it during the holiday season. I said, you know what? As we get ready for New Year's Eve, which, by the way, this show is recorded early in the day on New Year's Eve. So you're going to get a little bit of a New Year's Eve party here in the TSPL. We're starting with something special. James Pepper, but this one is the full-on barrel proof. So 53.3% alcohol by volume, which means 106.6 on the proof. So let's start at the bar and see what the gentlemen who are at the bar who got a Caleb Morse pour, which means you didn't get a taste. You got a full 2 fingers worth. All right. What are we thinking at the bar? Who's diving in first?
I'll go first. It's very light on the nose. I'm not getting a whole lot of scent, and maybe it's my expenditures of the amount of cigars I smoked over the last few days, but it smells very light to me.
Okay.
It drinks light as well. It doesn't drink like 106. I'm not pulling a lot of flavors out of it. Just a light, smooth drink. A little bit of caramel, but that's about it.
Okay. All right. Let's jump over to Walker because Walker has a pour. Caleb is going to be in charge of pantomiming what Walker says. Now he's got a better view of Walker, so he can do it a little bit better. He can actually mirror and mimic Walker a little better. So, Walker, I'm curious as to what you think of this James E. Pepper barrel proof.
It's you like it out the gate. Out the gate.
I hope that Tug got the edit so people could actually see what you did, because I barely caught it.
I enjoy it. It's really not a what do you say, heavy drinker. Something that I feel like you could drink during the day, like we are right now. I don't feel like it's too strong or has a lot of pepper or spice behind it.
Okay.
I do get a little bit of caramel though.
All right. Little caramel on it. Not too heavy of a drinker. I will say this, and I think this is going to follow with both what Jonathan said as well as you, Walker. This does not drink like 106. This does not even come close to drinking like 106. Let's go to Danny and see what Danny thinks about this one.
Well, same thing. First taste, it is a little light on the nose, but it's also very light on the palate, especially for that higher proof. But it's got some nice flavor going down. It doesn't burn like a 106 either.
No, it does not have that proof to it. It just doesn't seem to come across that way. It doesn't give you the Kentucky hug. It gives you, I find, flavor, and I'll talk about the flavors I find in a minute. But when I say smooth, when I say shockingly unaggressive for 106, but still with enough pepper to it to sustain itself,
Right.
I really like this.
And for me, less corn than a lot of high proof bourbons.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
You know, I'm not a bourbon guy.
Yeah, you're a rye guy.
I'm a rye guy.
So to me, this should give you the
Yeah.
pepper kind of like you get in a rye because it
Exactly.
gives you a little bit of that
Exactly.
spice. This almost comes across, and I'm really not sure the mash bill on this one, but it almost comes across like a high rye bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that it is. So I'll spend a little time trying to look that up while we hear from the Rustic Renegade and see what he's able to ascertain and what his nose is able to pick up off of this Jamesy pepper.
So when I smell it, I get a berry. I'm not sure what berry. It's not like raspberry or something else. Maybe like an elderberry.
Is it a schnozberry?
Schnozberries. Tastes like schnozberries. But yeah, it's some kind of berry. Like I'm not 100% sure what it is. I'll figure it out, I'm sure. And then I get like moist leather. Like whenever you have a brand new pair of boots or a brand new holster or a baseball glove that you're trying to break in, and you kind of moisten it a little bit and work it, and that you get that perfume of the leather. Not like up on it, nose humping the leather itself, but I get that on the smell. And then on the first taste, I got, you know, those world's finest chocolates that everyone sells for fundraisers?
Yeah.
They have one in there that's got caramel in it. I get that. It's like a cross between the world's finest chocolates with the caramel in there, or Reese's does a milk chocolate caramel right now.
Okay.
And I'm kind of getting that because I get that chocolatey, the smoothness of it, a little bit of hint of chocolate, but a nice, soft, sweet caramel, not overpowering. It's very, very creamy, I think is the right word I'm going to use for it, because it's not sharp. The flavors blend together smooth. They roll together, but yet they're each independent of one another. So this is really well done. I'm very, very impressed by it.
You know, Caleb, the fact that you brought up, and we're going to say the words, and Big Whiskey, a.k.a. the Liquor Fairy, is going to laugh. That creamy mouthfeel is very much like the Redemption Surly.
Yes.
It
very
gives
much
you
like
very much that same mouthfeel. And yes, the flavors blend together. It's not crisp, but it is incredibly smooth.
that.
And by the way, Danny, I was able to look it up. So this is 60 corn, but 35 rye.
Oh, yeah.
So this classifies as a high rye bourbon, which I'm glad we were able to pick out. And it kind of validates the notes that we're getting off of it. On the nose, I get, and I know this is going to sound difficult for some, but I get that typical Buffalo Trace mash bill. I get that typical flavor profile that you get from Buffalo Trace. Now, I don't get necessarily, as it says, the sharpness, the aggression that you expect on some of the stuff that comes out that goes in a bottle that has like George T. Stagg on it or something like that. But I do get that caramel. I love the flavor profile in how smooth it is. You get that little bit of sweetness without too much sweetness. It's sweet and bold all at the same time.
I think I would use Justin Richard's term, and it's dignified.
Agreed.
This is a gentleman's bourbon, I find. Not as aggressive as the flavors we go for, but this is well done. Like this, I imagine, sitting out by a fire at a nice hunting club, a good lounge. That's where I could see this fitting in.
Especially in the presentation, because if you look at the color, not just in the bottle, but the color in the glass, you've got that deep amber to it. You've got that really smooth flavor. It is a beautiful bottle for presentation. So when you put it on the shelf, when you put it out at a party, somebody's going to look at that and go, oh, I'll bet that's really expensive. You just look at it and think, it's probably a pretty penny for that particular bottle. And then when you taste it, to me, this is one of those that will ruin you for bourbon whiskey. Because at 106 proof, this is dangerous. It's really, really dangerous, given that it doesn't have that burn. It doesn't have too much alcohol to it. It is proofed perfectly, in my opinion.
I agree. Like I wouldn't want this any hotter. I wouldn't want it any softer. It comes in perfect at 106 because it doesn't drink like a 106.
No. And as this
is-
breathes, this is going to get, because we open it, we pour, so we all get neck pour, essentially. But as it's going to breathe throughout the next couple of hours, as we start talking about things on the show, I have a feeling that this is going to end up kind of ruining the bar for 2025 in
Maybe
where we're going to
setting the
start.
bar.
If it sets the bar, like I said, it's going to ruin the bar. Now, it will make our bar here in the TSPL, but it's going to ruin the bar that we set for the whiskeys that we drink because, man, it's really, really just delicious and drinkable. It is approachable as a bourbon, which you don't always get in something at 106. It also explains why you don't see them often, why they're pretty hard to find.
Mhm.
Because these, man, if you get the opportunity, I would absolutely buy this one, bring it home. You can give it to a beginner and you can ruin them. You can maybe set them on a path where they now spend the next couple of years trying to find something like that. You can give it to somebody who really likes whiskey and they're going to really appreciate it.
Yeah, you give them this, and next thing you know, they have a full-on red room, right?
All right, so let's rate this on the Morse Whiskey rating code, as well as let's go ahead and play What Would You Pay for the box drop What Would You Pay championship belt chain, which is sitting at the bar, which somebody needs to hold up and shake just so we can hear it. And so if you're watching on video, you can see it. Oh, Jonathan, I love it. Okay. So, red, I wouldn't drink it even if it was free. Yellow, I would only drink it if it was free. Green, I would buy this. Blue, I would seek this out. Let's start with the person you can't see, which, trust me, is to your benefit. Walker, where would you rate this, and what would you pay?
Solid green. You said it's kind of hard to find. I'm gonna go $80.
$80. Solid green, $80. Let's go to the bar. Danny, why don't you start?
Well, since I'm already trying to figure out where to get it, I will say it's a blue.
Okay.
But also knowing Buffalo Trace and some of their price, I'm going to go 55.
55. Interesting. Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm going to go blue as well. I'll be searching for this one. And I'm going to say 90.
90. Okay. Let's go to the Rustic Renegade himself, Caleb Morris.
This is a blue. I wrote it down out the gate. Like, this is a blue for me every day of the week. I want it. I need it. I'm going to overshoot, but I'm thinking I'm right. 125.
Okay, so we have 55. Walker, you went what? 80. Jonathan, you went 90.
90.
Caleb, you're over a C note.
Yep. Yeah, it has
All
to
right,
be.
so first of all, this is absolutely a blue. To me, there is no doubt this is a blue. We're going to add some of this to Deep Blue, which is at the bar, which is the Implicit Bias Infinity bottle, which only gets the best of the best of the best, sir. But we do know why we're here. So, yes, it's a blue. Walker's the only one who squirreled, which is not shocking because we know that he has no taste. So, as far as the What Would You Pay championship belt chain, I've got to do some math here. Yes, it is. The winner is going to be Walker.
What?
Walker is closest because this is a $69.99 bottle of whiskey. So Walker's just $10 away, essentially, $10 and a penny. So Walker gets to wear the box drop What Would You Pay championship belt chain for the rest of the show. And first of all, I have to ask, who's shocked that this is not more than that?
I mean, I'm shocked. I thought it was $1.25 easy. Like, that's what I expected, was at least a C note for this.
Yeah, way too cheap. Way too cheap for what it tastes.
Don't spoil it. I mean,
I'm sorry, I can't do the rest of the show.
and why is that?
I got to go find this.
Well, here's the funny part. I actually went to look for a bottle of Pure Kentucky this weekend, getting ready for New Year's Eve parties and all that stuff. And you got holiday parties and all that. So I'm like, I want something that I can go ahead and make cocktails with. I don't mind as a neat pour, and something that's yet affordable. Where we live, somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. Well, that's actually where the TSPL is. But where we live in Lafayette, Louisiana. We live here too. Do you know that that is becoming an allocated bottle?
I can see it. Oh, I could see it.
107 on the proof out of Willett Distillery. But the point is, you could buy that anywhere. And then you, our listeners, picked it up. and started running with it and turned it into something that's unobtainium. So, Jonathan, don't turn this into unobtainium.
I just need one bottle.
You just need one. Okay.
One's not enough. One's to drink. 2 is to have a backup.
Correct. If I have one, I have none. If I have two, I can
have
drink
one.
One pair.
There you
There
go.
you
There
go.
you go.
There you
One pair.
Well, then I need 3 because I need one for my son-in-law.
Ah, okay. Well, and look, I love when people give them as gifts because especially when you find something that no one else is going to
Oh, yeah.
find.
Well, then you enjoy it with them.
Right.
That's the ticket, is right. Sitting there and enjoying a good glass of bourbon. Like I look forward to, when my boys are older, sitting down, talking about the women they married and the mistakes they've made, drinking bourbon together. I really do.
Hopefully, the mistakes they've made do not include the women they've married. I'm just saying.
I hope not. Like I think I raised them better.
Yeah, no, look, you never know, right? I mean, we're a messy species and there's not much we can do about that. So we certainly hope that the decisions that we make, even though we know we're going to make mistakes, are good ones. Another big mistake is having Walker in here, who now has to show me the finger from somewhere in my peripheral vision, which I'm actually glad I can pick up. But yeah, Walker, I'm going to give the finger right back at you. We're going to take a break. Come right back as we dive into our favorite stories of 2024 here on Implicit Bias. What was your favorite story from 2024? This is Implicit Bias, and we had some of our own storylines, like, you know, the Implicit Bias pledge, Walker Griffon, who no longer wears his pledge pin. Things like us going to video now, which are some stories. But I mean, like, the stories that have been out there. We're going to find out what the crew really thinks here in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast lair, somewhere in downtown Lafayette. At the bar, we've got Danny Izzo. We've got Jonathan Broussard sitting in the chair like mine. He is the rustic renegade, the man, the myth, the legend, waiting for summer so he can become the tan, the myth, the legend. He is Caleb Morris. All right, let's start with you, Caleb. What was your favorite story from 2024?
It's kind of a bleed over, man. It's got to be just the continuation of now the UAPs, not UFOs.
Okay.
I'm really digging it because I think it's more spiritual than extraterrestrial, if that makes sense.
Well, extraterrestrial could still be
Yes.
spiritual, not of this earth.
Correct.
And we've got the whole drone situation in New Jersey. I mean, we got all kinds of stuff. That even actually could bleed into this whole fog conversation
Ooh.
that people are talking about, which is, we're not going to get into it on this show, but that's, if you're on those back channels of the internet, there's a lot of people out there who believe, and even Tucker Carlson said the more he looks into the UAP UFO situation, that he believes it's not of this dimension. Not necessarily not of this planet, which is a whole nother discussion.
Well, that goes into the particle accelerator and how they've proven now
CERN, yeah.
they've proven now that there are multiple dimensions of the same territorial realm. And I think it's really important to have people you can have these kind of discussions with. You know, I've got a guy who is a legit physicist. And one day I was like, man, I don't know if I believe the Earth's really round or not. And he goes, why not? I'm like, I don't know. Like, educate me. And he's like, why don't you believe it? I'm like, because I've never seen it. You know, I think that it could be flat. I think it could be round. It could be bigger than we say. It could be smaller than we say. It could be a lot of things. Walker's making a face at me like, this guy's crazy. But I could be crazy too. I don't know.
Well, here to me is the ultimate reason to ask that question. It's because we've been lied to about so many things now. We now know we've been lied to about so many things. The question becomes, what else are they lying about?
Well, it's question everything until you know the truth, right? Like I did that with my faith. I dug into it and learned more and became stronger in my faith, right? So talking to Kelly was like, dig into it, learn more about why the earth is round. Give me a better education, a better understanding. Help me to be able to defend these different things from a more intellectual manner. So it's having the right kind of people that are willing to talk to you and say, bro, that's crazy, but let's discuss it.
I love that we are now in a place where asking questions is not as shunned as it was 3 to 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Because 3 to 5 years ago, it was just pointing fingers and trying to make fun of you, a conspiracy theorist.
It was trust the science back then.
Correct. And the scientists were so wrong, it wasn't even funny. So I'm glad that we're in a place where we can now ask those questions and have the discussion again, because we had forgotten, I believe, how to ask questions. We'd forgotten how to prove our faith. We had gotten so far from what we actually knew to be the truth that to go back to the monologue, we didn't even realize that we'd forgotten Jesus. right?
Oh.
We didn't even realize that it's with us. He's with us.
Yeah,
We
he's
got
right
all this.
there.
And then we turn around and go, wait, he's not?
Yeah, he's still walking the path. We're the ones that have veered.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's worthwhile to reach over and grab him by the hand and say, look, hold on to me a little bit tighter.
Agreed.
Because that's what we need.
Agreed. Okay, so I love the UAP story, UFO story. There's so much there. And to your point, there are so many physicists who are there who say, hey, we really need to look at this at another level because there's something we're not being told.
There's so much, because when you look at what the government's hit about it, when they finally came out and said, look, they originally said during COVID, and they're like, look, all the craziness has happened. Let's give them aliens.
Yeah.
Like they'll take that. And we were like, oh, screw it. Yeah, that makes sense today. And then it's slowly it's progressed to more and more and more where.
Well, let's be really conspiracy theorist. And for those who want to question this, please don't believe us on this. We now have leaked docs allegedly from the CIA that says, hey, we've gone and seen what Mars was like pre-human civilization, and it was just basically giant humans. I think that was written about somewhere many, many, many thousand years ago. And
maybe the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, I mean, you've got this stuff written from antiquity, and the CIA is saying, yeah, that's fine. And everybody's just like, yeah, not a big deal. Don't care. And you're like, wait, the government is admitting this, and we have seen so much stuff in the last, especially year, that people are like, yeah, not a shocker. It's all right. I figured it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so let's go to the bar. Who wants to start? A story, your favorite story from 2024. Jonathan, you got the mic.
From someone who's always been impressed by the space trips we've made over the last 30, 40, 60 years.
Allegedly. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the one that caught me this year was we caught a rocket re-entering. That just was so impressive to me, and it's unfathomable how that could be put together.
Look, when you think technologically, what are we capable of? Jonathan, you and I, Danny, you remember as well, it was a big deal when we were able to bring a craft back and land it a la the space shuttle and reuse a craft. Now we're talking about the full-on rocket, the whole thing. Because when the space shuttle went up, you had the external fuel tank, which was made right here in Louisiana. You had the rocket boosters, and they were all disposable. They went away. You couldn't use them again. But now you're able to use the whole rocket because we can catch it like a fly ball.
Grabbing it before it touches the ground,
It's insane what Musk has been able to do with SpaceX. And what's really insane is that the government poured billions upon billions upon billions upon billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars into this and couldn't do it. And Musk did it in 10 years.
Yeah, the rate at what this is being done is amazing.
Yes, it absolutely is. Makes you wonder, what technology will we see in 2025? What's coming up next? What more is out there that they're going to show us and reveal as we move forward?
Well, I'm hoping that we finally catch up to the roaring 20s and everything else, right? Look, when you look back at the technological leaps and bounds that we made in the early 19th century, and then we've kind of just been stagnant. We just broke into quantum computing. We've just done a few more things. We're doing better at rockets. Man, here's our chance to really change the earth.
But that's because we don't have enough H-1B visas, Caleb.
Okay. Yeah.
No, but seriously, we have become
Oh,
very
yeah.
stagnant, and we have just been happy with the status quo.
And I'm happy to see, so the barge that caught the rocket, you know where part of it was designed?
Probably right here in Lafayette.
Right here in Lafayette.
Again, technology that
so
we're not
many
told
smart
about.
people that, drive an old beat up F-350 that just want to be left alone and just want to enjoy their life. And that's what I think is just amazing is the amount of intelligence that we still have on Earth.
Yeah.
Are you saying there's so many smart people surrounding the TSBL?
I think so. I hope so.
Well, the other thing that this shows is the efficiency of companies outside of the government.
Absolutely. Well, again, Reagan's 9 worst words you ever want to hear. I'm from the government and I'm here to help. They are the scariest words you will ever hear because government and efficiency literally run opposite each other. The minute you say government, you know it's not going to be efficient. Danny, what's your favorite story?
Well, it's not necessarily a single story, but the idea that we're really coming to grips with the fact that our experts aren't necessarily so. And in a lot of cases, are experts in a field where they're being paid to be experts and paid to have the information that they're sending out. And the whole idea that just because you're labeled an expert doesn't really mean that the information you're giving is true and factual.
Wait a minute, Danny. You mean that Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce weren't endorsing a presidential candidate for free? They weren't doing it because they believed it. They were doing it because they were getting paid. I mean, that's a 2024
I don't
story.
know, that's a tough one.
Have y'all read Tim Ferriss did a thing on what it takes to be considered an expert, right? And I'm air quoting here.
Uh-oh.
He actually goes into it. He's like, look, donate your time and do a seminar at a college, free of charge. Whoever shows up, he goes, you might get one person, might get two. But then you can put on there that you spoke at a college. So you speak at another college, free. You do this 3 or 4 times, and now you've addressed and done 3 or 4 different collegiate level seminars. From there, you can take it and you hold another one where you charge $50 to $100 a person. And now
You're an expert.
you're an expert. That's all it takes. Like when I became a court certified firearm expert, I had to literally sit down and show them my resume, binders and binders of all the rounds I've shot on my training.
But that's a very different classification of expert.
It is.
We have expanded that definition to basically mean anyone that we think is important.
Well,
So
anyone that has a YouTube channel, anyone that has an opinion.
we're experts then.
Yeah,
Because we have a YouTube channel. No, but I mean, but if you think about it, so in court, you can get classified as an expert. The
Mhm.
court has to recognize you, and you have to lay out your credentials.
Right.
But in the media, you're an expert because someone who might be getting paid to run that story says you're an expert. So one of my favorite stories of 2024, and Danny, this is going to coincide with yours, which is the media got exposed. CBS got sued and settled
Mm-hmm.
for saying someone was a rapist when they weren't convicted of rape. That started to pull the curtain back. The other big story for me from 2024 was a continuation of a story from 2020. And it's the fact that we haven't seen it let go. And it's this. Joe Biden is sharper than ever before. Joe Biden is cognizant. He is as good as he ever was. I mean, the number of people in the media who flat out lied. I mean, lied to you, to me, to everyone out there. My favorite story of 2024 is that they lied and they all got exposed. People started to see the monumental neck-deep level of bull that we have been fed for decades. That, to me, is the best story of 2024, is the spell has essentially been broken.
And I think part of it is influencers have become experts just because they have a big following.
I can dance on TikTok, so you should listen to me on politics. That's where we are.
Yeah.
That's literally where we are. But again, the influencers, Danny, have also started to call out some of the BS.
Yes.
Oh, this presidential candidate's campaign is trying to send me $5,000 to just endorse this particular person so my followers will see this. Hold on. Because you can put on too much makeup, because you can comb your hair in a way that looks like one of the Backstreet Boys' dead missing member, right? Does not mean that you are qualified to talk politics. Does not mean that you can have your opinion, but your opinion might be worthless.
And that's what people don't understand is like, look, everyone should have an opinion.
Agreed.
You should. But you also should understand and know the difference between your opinion and something that's factual. Like, look, I speak my opinion in my mind freely. And I would like to think that the people listening to our show know that, look, sometimes I'm a bit full of it because I've been proven wrong more than once, more than twice on this show.
No.
And look,
Never.
I want to continue to be proven wrong because that's how I learn and that's how I grow.
That's why, to me, 2024 was a banner year. Don't get me wrong. It was a little difficult. It was one of those years where people struggled financially in 2024. People struggled socially in 2024. Walker struggled because he had to learn to count to 3 for this show in 2024. And he got the 1 out. So we're going to continue the show. We'll come back, round out hour 1 on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. Wrapping up hour 1 of this week's episode of Implicit Bias, I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We are coming to you from the TSPL, the Top Secret Podcast Lair, located somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. We've got a great crew for you. That's crew with a K here this week. And we got some great weekly whiskeys. We were talking about our favorite stories of 2024 in the last segment. And this story just happens to tie in because my favorite story was the media being exposed for basically what they are, which is majority propaganda. Well, this story came out, and I had to call it out. I found it on the rabbit hole on X, but I actually found the article. It came from tabletmagazine.com online. And what they did was they went back and looked at print media since the 1970s. And they did a word count of the time that race, racist, racism was used in print since the 70s. And the count, as you can imagine, was staggering as we got to, call it what, 2016, 2020? Caleb, what's your joke? You're laughing over there about something. Do you not remember this? Or?
No, I do, but Walker did what I told him to do, and it made me laugh.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
Inside joke. Caleb's picking on Walker, trying to get him to break up with his girlfriend. No. Actually trying to get his girlfriend to break up with him by telling Walker to do stupid stuff.
I'm just hoping like she realizes like that's how we are. We never grow up.
This is true. No, we don't grow up.
All right. So print media.
That's why we do the show. But
terms
print media,
such as race, racism, racist.
Okay. Since 1970, the New York Times, take a guess what the percentage delta was that print media between, now this is 1970 to 2020. So not including the last 4 years.
Is there, wait, so we're going to have a different percentage for after the last 4 years? So during the last 4 years?
We don't have that count, but this is just an increase on what led to maybe some of the issues that we had leading up to 2020.
So what is the percentage increase from 1970 to now?
Correct.
2,875%.
Not as far off as you probably think. Did anybody see the article that I sent and catch the number? 712% increase. That's just the New York Times. The Los Angeles Times, 756% increase. The Washington Post, 361% increase. And the Wall Street Journal, 468%.
I would love to see like a scale of where the peak increase was.
The peak increase was 2019 to 2020 or 2017 to 2020.
So all of a sudden, did it become trendy to call someone racist?
Or maybe they were creating a story instead of reporting the story.
But the news media wouldn't just do that. It's not like aliens invaded.
Correct. Here's the really interesting part. If you look at a Gallup survey of how people felt about race relations from 1970 until 2020, they were pretty even, if not getting better, until about 2017 when everything started to skyrocket.
See, and I grew up, we were one of the few white families in the neighborhood, and we never had I didn't know people could be racist like people said they were. It wasn't until I joined the military and met people from further up north where I was like, "Ooh, ooh."
I'm not saying, but I mean, we've seen it.
Down here we're a melting pot. You have, you could probably count every race that you can think of, but they're all still a human race within one block. You know, we have all these different kinds of ethical, different
Ethnic
backgrounds,
races.
ethnic races,
Yeah.
different backgrounds, and all that. And
Ethnicities,
that's the word I was looking for. And you look at it in our food and everything else, and like we commend people and we commend people's backgrounds because your heritage is part of who you are and where you come from. It builds you into the person that you are today. And other places condemn it.
Danny, you wanted to chime in?
Oh, yeah. 2017 coincides with Trump.
So,
And think of it. This man had won numerous awards from the NAACP and all these other black groups. And all of a sudden, when he's elected president as a Republican, he's racist.
so Danny, that's a huge call out, right?
Yeah.
Tabletmag.com has this, and the actual article, and I'm glad that you called that out, but the article is actually titled How the Media Led the Great Racial Awakening. And then the subtitle is Years Before Trump's Election, the media dramatically increased coverage of racism and embraced new theories of racial consciousness that set the stage for unrest. Now, this article was written in 2020, but amazing how it didn't make headlines in 2020. It didn't get promoted on social. You didn't see it. Why? Because it didn't fit the narrative. Because they didn't want you to know who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. The invisible hand, it's there. We know it's there. But the media has been running that invisible hand for a very long time. Or let me rephrase that. They maybe haven't been running the invisible hand. They have been executing the desires of the invisible hand for a very long time.
I mean, every puppeteer needs a puppet.
In my mind, we need to just quit even talking about racism and talk about bigotry.
Tell me more.
All right, here's a good example. When I was little, my father was a nightclub musician. My mother, redheaded Irish woman, has a big nose. They went to stay in a small hotel somewhere where my dad was playing in a nightclub. They wouldn't let them stay because the owner of the hotel thought my mother looked Jewish, and they didn't allow Jews in the hotel.
Really?
Interesting thing was the piano player
Was Jewish. And they didn't know.
but he didn't look it. So Dave was okay. We couldn't stay there because my mom, the redheaded Irish woman, whose ancestry traces back to the next boat after the freaking Mayflower, looked Jewish to that person. We had to find another hotel.
So I think one of the big issues was when the word racism was redefined and it was said, oh, well, if you look a certain way, you can't be racist. Wait a minute. We're going to define the word. The word racism is to hate, discriminate against someone because of their ethnic background, period. Which means no matter what you look like, you cannot like someone else because of their race.
Actually, that's not true. I mean, your definition is...
Well, my definition is not, it's not a Webster's definition.
Right. But, and this is part of the problem, we have morphed racism into bigotry against ethnicities. For instance, Hispanic is not a race. Caucasian is a race. Hispanic is not a race. But we've labeled that and made that part of the whole anti-racism thing. Which is blurring all the lines and making things even harder to discuss.
Yeah,
I never thought about that because when you fill out a background check, it asks you your race, and it doesn't. Hispanic's not on there. Underneath it, it says ethnicity.
Correct.
Hispanic or not.
But the races on there are generally Caucasian, Black,
Yep, Asian,
and Asian.
Yep.
Or
They'll have, I think
native,
some will have Native
North
American or Pacific Islander, that kind of stuff too.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
Pacific Islander.
It's a really interesting thought process with what the definitions, with what the media has done. And to me, this is the big takeaway. Are there Caucasians who don't like other races? Sure. Are there other races who don't like Caucasians? Sure. But the whole point becomes nobody gets special treatment. Nobody gets a pass. Nobody is said, oh, you can't be racist. Everybody can. And that's where it needs to go, as opposed to the narrative that the media has desired to put out there in 2024 and 2020 and 2017 and 2016, which is, oh, if you look like this, you can't be bad, because if you look like that, those people have always been bad to you. That's not a true story.
Every group has good people and bad people, you know, and it's
Sure.
it's our job as good people to say, hey, look, we don't stand for that.
Correct.
You cut it out. And that's what you do with a child. You're like, hey, stop.
But that's why I think we need to focus more on bigotry than
Well,
racism or ethnicity or anything like that.
Jonathan, do you want to chime in before I follow up on this? I saw you leaning in.
I'm just going to piggyback on what Danny said about keeping it out there. It's always out there. I think some celebrity, and I think it might be Morgan Freeman, who was asked about his success as an African-American person and being treated with less respect because of his race. And he inwardly said, look at my success. My success should show you that I'm not
Yeah, it's never been a
picked on,
problem.
right? And he also said, the problem is we talk about it too much.
Well, and
Quit
look,
talking about it.
Lil Wayne has said the same thing. Lil Wayne actually said, I was shot in the chest as a kid. My life was saved by a couple of New Orleans police
Oh, I
officers.
remember that story.
And there
yeah.
were a lot of police officers who looked like me, who walked over me, and it was somebody who didn't look like me who said, what are you doing? Get this kid out of here. We got to save this kid's life. And he said, so I don't see it. This, to me, is where we have to go back to. It's an axiom we have here on the show, which is believe none of what they say, believe only what they do. Stop listening to what the media says about people. Oh, this person is that way. You don't know that. What has the person physically done to prove it? Well, they can't give you any examples. Why? Because it hasn't been done. They just want to create the label. And this is what, to me, brings me back to the whole entirety of what I love about 2024. People are starting to see through it. Because the media has been busted for lying in so many occasions, for slandering people, for saying things that just simply aren't true. I love that the ladies on The View have turned into a walking legal disclaimer. I love it. Why? Because that's all they've ever, that they should have been that for years, because they get on there and they talk about things that they don't know. They talk about people that they hugged and loved and now hate. Why? Because they didn't vote for him? Well, you know what we need you to vote for, because we need you to stick around? We want you to vote for hour 2 of Implicit Bias, which is always more fun. We're going to lighten up the topics. We're going to have some more fun. If your affiliate is not with us in hour 2, call the station. Tell them you want more Implicit Bias. Tell them you want more fun in hour 2 of your favorite Saturday show, Implicit Bias. Hour 2 of Implicit Bias is always more fun. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We're coming to you from the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair. And in January 2025, Mr. Lester's, let's just say, they are maybe a forbidden location for those who know. And if you know, trust me, you want to know. When I say forbidden location, what I mean is it's forbidden because that's part of their whiskey special in January. The Forbidden Offering from Forbidden out of Bardstown. Caleb, you want to grab it? Go ahead. Oh, no, you just wanted your
I was
glass.
gonna get my glass again.
Yeah,
so
you-
it's Bardstown Distilling. So we've had this stuff before, but not these. The Forbidden series is their, we'll call them premium, I think.
Yeah.
The bottles
Yeah.
are just gorgeous.
When Walker's trying to tell us something. Walker,
He
what?
wants some.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, I was just asking you to. I didn't want to say it over the air.
Oh, yeah, see.
You should have that one. You should have
I
the
don't know.
single
I'll-
barrel.
Hold on. I'll give him this one. No, I won't. Anyway, we'll make him wait. Okay, go ahead, Caleb.
So I noticed when we this is my second glass, right? So on the first one, the single barrel, on the nose, when I put it in the book, I mean, you get that corny, a little corn smell to it, a little alcohol, a little leather, caramel, and then I got like a fresh cut wheat field. Like I could smell the wheat. Tasted it, didn't taste wheated, but I could smell it. And then I was like, man, there's something up with this. How old is this? What is it? It's a blend. I looked it up and boom, right then and there, it is their weeded series. So the Forbiddens are all weeded. And I think that they did a phenomenal job because I am not a fan of weeded. Normally it's too soft, too gentle. You smell it, you don't taste it. Like it's impressive the way that they did this. And it's not even a small amount of wheated. It's like 16% wheat. So that's a pretty high amount in there. There's barley, wheat, and corn. And for it not to come off too gentle, too soft, too forgettable, that says something about how this female master distiller did her job appropriately.
So I'm going to ask Caleb, have you had the small batch yet? Because this is the one I'm tasting.
That's the one I just poured. I haven't had it yet.
Okay, take a nose of the glass, take a quick sip, and I'm going to tell you what I got off of this the second that I tasted it. So, and we'll go to the bar in just a second where
It's very, very light on the nose.
both Danny and Jonathan have had a taste of this already, the Forbidden series. Caleb, when I got a taste of this, it immediately took me to the deer camp. And why to the deer camp? Here's why. Because the flavor, and this will make sense because we know that olfactory and taste is linked. The flavor was the scent of persimmon corn.
Yes. Yes.
When I tell you, I tasted it and went, oh, that is that
'Cause when you-
beautiful smell of persimmon corn.
you mix
when
up the
use it.
bag right before you dump it out, you make sure it's all good.
Or you
cut
just buy
open.
it already mixed with,
Yep.
with persimmon and put it in the feeder. It's just that scent, which I love so much. I like it so much that I will even store my hunting clothes in there so that when I put it on, if I smell like anything, I smell hopefully like deer
Yeah,
feed.
yeah.
But I mean, just it's a wonderful smell. And when I tasted this, I went, oh, it is truly unique. It is truly elevated. And Caleb, did you even catch the proof on this? I did not get the proof
I
on
didn't.
this.
It's hard to read the label.
Okay, yeah, this one is 47.
I'm going to tell you this, though. The single barrel is good.
So this is 95.2.
That single barrel is damn good.
Okay, so this is 95.2 on the proof, 47.6. It drinks soft. It does.
Yeah. This is easy. You could have this. This could be like, I just got out of the stand. Unfortunately, I didn't see anything, and the deer hate me today. Or I just got what I've been looking for,
Absolutely. Okay, let's go to the bar. You guys have the single barrel, correct?
I have the single barrel.
Okay,
yes.
so Jonathan, what do you think of this single barrel that's available at Mr. Lester's? We're going to talk about what this is available for.
It's 115 proof. And I
No
don't-
idea?
It's 115.
No, what I'm saying is you would not know.
Oh no,
If
I
you
would not
didn't-
know. You're
if you
right.
hadn't read it.
Right. It's not hot. It's pretty smooth. I don't get a lot on the scent, but it is grassy to me. A little more on the dry, grassy side. And that's a lot of what I get. No sweets on it, and I really like wheat. But this is not your typical wheat to me.
I agree. This is certainly not a typical weeded bourbon. Danny?
I can tell this is a higher proof and more corn.
Okay.
So I'm not as fond of this one as the previous one, but I am actually looking forward to trying
The single barrel.
the single.
I'm sorry,
barrel.
the small batch.
Or
You
small
have the
batch,
single
yes.
barrel. Yeah.
The other, I have the single barrel. So I'm looking forward to trying the small batch. But it's still a very nice bourbon.
Yeah. The small batch is an incredibly easy drinker. It is really unique.
Well, the presentation is amazing on these.
It absolutely is.
Because we
It
look
really
at the other
is.
bar styles that we've had, and the bottles all look amazing. This bottle is very retro, very like Rocketeer. I wish the label was a little different because it's hard for me
That
to
would be
read.
Art Deco.
Yeah, I prefer to say Rocketeer. When I say Rocketeer, we all think back like, oh, that crappy movie.
Yeah.
Like we know what I was
right.
but
talking
it was
about.
but it was done in Art Deco.
yeah, Art
yeah.
Deco. Rocketeer way better.
No, the presentation on these is fantastic, as well as the Bluestone Manor.
Mhm.
I love the look of all of these, and they are really difficult to find. I've never seen the Forbidden series
No,
anywhere on a
no.
shelf.
If I
Never
had,
seen
I'd
it
have
for
bought 'em.
sale. Yeah, the presentation alone will make you say, I've got to try it at least.
I think the Bardstown Distillery is kind of like that. One of my favorites was we visited there.
Okay.
That's where 1792.
Yep.
Mhm.
And when my wife and I went on a bourbon and baseball
Mm-hmm.
trip a few years ago, the first place we went was that distillery by accident. We were on our way to our bed and breakfast, and we're like, oh, there's 1792. Turn the car around and go back because we'd already passed it up. And they had one there that they only sell in the gift shop. Very old Barton.
Yes.
It's still one of my favorites, and you can't get it
Nope.
anywhere but in their gift shop.
Hmm.
So I've sworn if I ever get back to their gift shop, I'm buying a case.
Maybe that'd be a great, like annual trip or something would be to some distilleries.
Oh. Let me know
Don't give any.
Let me know when you're going. I'm
don't-
with you.
don't give any
I'll be your
thoughts.
wingman.
Don't give any thoughts away, Caleb. I mean, anyway, Jonathan. What do you,
Maybe somebody with an RV could take us there.
That's a great
Oh,
idea.
I wonder who's got an RV. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge for our Monty Python fans out there. Caleb.
Road trip.
On the side of my RV, it's going to say the nights that say "ni."
Not the knights who say icky, icky, icky. We are no longer the knights who say neat. Yes. And anyway, we go down that Monty Python rabbit hole. All right. So the stories that are out there in 2020. Oh, but we got to address what this is going for at Mr. Lester's.
I don't want to.
Take a guess how much per pour. Anybody? Caleb?
20 per pour.
12.
18.
15. 15 a pour. For the flight
You'll
of
never
3.
find that anywhere else.
No, you won't. For the flight of 3, anybody want to guess?
35.
30.
It is 40 for the flight of 3.
At least, well, and that you're getting a hell of a bargain.
You are getting a tremendous bargain because finding these on the shelf is hard enough.
Yeah.
Much less going somewhere and getting a pour. I mean, look, the wife and I happened to be out. We had a gift card that we'd been given to a restaurant in Lafayette that has a really nice bourbon selection. Shockingly, like you wouldn't anticipate that this place, because it's not a whiskey place. Pour a Michter's 10 was, a double was 25, which is not bad at all.
No.
But it's still 25 for a single, a double, which essentially was a single like you get at Mr. Lester's. And there was a pour of George T. Yeah, it was the George T. It wasn't George. But that was $50, which you kind of expect, but it's still like, you can get that for 50, or you can try all 3 of these for 40.
And that's when you look at the value that they give you. And look, I need to go back. Jackie and I were talking about it. We wanted to go back around our anniversary, and I don't plan very well. So I called. They were booked. And then when I finally thought about it for Christmas, I was like, oh, you know what? We should go around Christmas time. Called.
They were
booked.
Guess what's coming up? Valentine's Day is
Yeah.
around the corner. It's
Yeah.
like 6 weeks away now. So
I would make my calls now. I'm going to set a reminder. in
if
my
they're
phone.
not booked, make the call now. Yeah. I made the call a long time ago. My wife won't listen to this show, or she will and she'll know, but that's okay. I've made the call, right? Because if you don't, you're going to miss out on reservations at the only 5-star restaurant between New Orleans and Houston, which is really fantastic. Okay, so some other stories that we had to go to. I want to start with this one. And this is actually, please don't believe me, this is a Harvard study that talks about people who are happy and people who are mentally ill versus where their political leanings lie. And believe it or not, there is, I don't want to say causation, but there is strong correlation between your political views and the chances of you being mentally ill, seeking mental help, and being happy. According to Harvard, please do not believe me on this. I'll even give you the citation as we get into this conversation. But according to Harvard, there is a 60% chance that if you are left-leaning,
You can be more specific too. It was 18 to 30-year-old left-leaning females
correct,
were 60% more likely to be seeking mental help
correct.
than anyone else, and they struggled with depression specifically.
And this is not to throw shade on people who suffer from depression, right?
No, and look,
It's a
talking-
terrible thing.
talking to a psychiatrist or psychologist, talking to a counselor, anyone, look, it's worth it. It really is.
It
to having
absolutely
someone you
is.
can vent to and talk to that can look at you and just accept you for who you are. It's phenomenal. But when you look at the depression, the anxiety features and all that they have, and it's from these far left, and I say far left leaning political affiliates. Like it's I for one think it's the victim mentality has a lot to do with it.
I don't disagree with you there. I think that as people on the far left have a tendency to politically align with lack of hope. If you think of it that way, my politics tell me that I have been constantly oppressed, that there is no way out, that I cannot overcome anything, that I am not strong enough to be an individual and overcome at all. And life is going to constantly keep me down no matter what I do. If my politics tell me that, then it, to me, leads to the conversation of the fact that, well, I've got zero hope, so therefore there's zero happiness. What do I have to be happy about? As opposed to those who look at it and go, you know what? My future is, for the most part, up to me.
Well, it goes to that it's not being a victim, right? Life doesn't care who you are, what you are, where you are socially, politically, or anything else. Life does not give a damn. Life happens. Now, society may care.
Well, to your
And
point,
society
correct.
may do certain things, but
Correct.
life doesn't care. Things happen to everyone.
That is a great
And
distinction.
sometimes it's just your turn.
That is a great distinction, because I was going to say, well, Hunter Biden. I mean, Hunter Biden, but life happened to Hunter Biden. Societally, because of where his father sat, society treated him very differently than 99.9% of people who've experienced life like he has. So, yeah, I think it's a great distinction. Does the bar have any thoughts on this? I was curious. I saw you start to lean in. Go ahead, Danny.
Well, and I think a part of it is so many people on the left believe that the government is the answer to their problems.
Ring the bell. Yeah, that's true.
And let's face it, that's depressing on the face of it.
Well, the reality is, not only is it depressing to think that government is my only way out, what's even more depressing is to understand that not only is government not your way out, government is creating most of your problems and you can't see it.
Right.
Right? You really believe, and a lot of people do believe this, that government is the way, more rules are the way to get this better, as opposed to, let's just hold a higher standard for people, hold us to the basic laws that we were set up with, but enforce those laws to everyone.
Well, and when you abdicate everything to the government, you give up your personal responsibility.
Well, you give up your personal
Ooh.
hope as well. You give up your personal
Exactly.
hope,
Well, yeah,
and that to me
if
is
you
the
give up
bigger
your
one.
personal responsibility, you've given up hope. Because
Yeah,
your
because at
hope,
that point, you're saying the government can control my life better than I can.
right, your hope is in the government that they will just make sure that
The government will only do what the government can get away with.
Well,
Right.
the government's not going to do what's right for you. The government's going to do what's right for the government.
And the purpose of the people is for the government to fear the people and the people govern themselves. Like, we tried to do this. God's people didn't have a king. They were the only kingdom with no king. And we said, we want a king, we want a king, we want a king. God gave him a king. And you know what? He was a tyrant. And God's like, this is what you asked for.
Jonathan?
I'm going to go a little bit further, and the word hope came up quite a few times. And who do you put your hope in? And you know, I'm going to say that more liberals than conservatives don't believe in a supreme being, a higher power, or God, or Jesus Christ, or don't follow. Us as conservatives know where to take our problems to, and know who's leading us through it all.
Go back to the monologue. He never left us. We left him. And we know that when stuff gets sideways, where do we go? We know where to go to find him. As that old saying goes, there are no atheists in a foxhole. All of a sudden, when times get really tough, people all of a sudden go, maybe I should go back there. I'm going to pray to whatever God there might, because there might be one. And the reality is they've gotten, I think, so far to the left that they don't remember to go there. We have to remember, because we got the 1 minute finger. Walker, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to go down more stories. Cow farts is on the agenda today. It is on the 2025 bingo card. So we're going to talk about what they're actually trying to do about it, which is even more frightening than what they're talking about on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. We are spending 2025 on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I am your host, Kevon Bordelon, and when I mean spending, I mean like government spending from the TSPL. I really wish we had enough money to spend like government spends. Let me introduce you to the crew who's here this week. In the chair, much like mine, he is the rustic renegade, Caleb Morse. Caleb, what do you have in the glass over there?
I went back to the single barrel.
So you're the Forbidden Series single barrel out of
Yes.
Bardstown.
Yeah,
okay.
It is very much worth my time.
And the proof on this is
Oh, you're gonna ask me a
114?
question. 115 on the nose. Yep. 57.5.
Well, there you go. 115 on the nose. We're going to talk about this one in just a second. It is available at Mr. Lester Steakhouse. At the bar, Jonathan Broussard is examining the small batch Forbidden Series, as well as Danny Izo, who I believe is on his 13th, 14th pour or whatever, Danny. Yeah, exactly. All right. So let's talk about.
He's just ready for the homily. That's all.
Because he is going to Mass on New Year's Eve as we are actually recording this week's episode on New Year's Eve. We were talking about our favorite stories of 2024 in hour one. This is one of my favorite things to go down and to listen to, and it is this. It is government spending in 2024.
Oh, this is so painful.
So here are some fun ones. $12 million on a Las Vegas pickleball complex, because we know Vegas needs tax money.
Every day of the week. Every day of the week.
They need federal tax money
Yep.
for a pickleball court.
And I'm sure they have to have another pickleball court.
Correct. $3 million for girls-centered climate action in Brazil.
Wait, girl or female?
Well, it says girl-centered. That, I think, is how it was labeled in the law.
Girl-centered climate action.
Correct. In
So-
Brazil.
In Brazil.
In-
So it's really hard to know. The girl from Ipanema is just going to be.
Well, I'm wondering
the
if we spent
clouds.
$3 million on Brazilians.
No.
Anyway, $10 million on Orwellian cat experiments.
Like George Orwell?
That's the way it's
wait,
spelled.
no, that's the one where they tested the cats to see if they were motion sickness. They drilled a hole in the cat's skulls, put sensors in there, and spun them around to see if cats got motion sickness.
Did we spend $10 million to try and figure out why a cat always lands on its feet?
No, not land on their feet. If they got sick and threw up, there's a difference.
After they landed.
Yeah,
on their
after they
feet.
landed on their
Yeah,
feet.
I'd have done that for $10.95.
Penny saved. Penny saved.
And all those cat ladies are just going crazy.
How is that not animal cruelty?
That's what I'm wondering.
Really?
I mean, look.
Did PETA support
I'm
that
sorry,
decision?
you put the word Orwellian in anything, and the first thing you got to think of is, really?
All right, $4.8 million solely for Ukrainian influencers.
Oh, Ukrainian social media influencers.
Correct.
Ah.
20 million.
This one's my favorite.
20 million on a Sesame Street show in Iraq.
Oh, what?
With the name Alan Simpson.
Yeah. 20 million on a Sesame Street show in Iraq. Because, that's what our tax dollars, our U.S. tax dollars, needs to go towards.
Is there still an Elmo? Like,
No,
it's
I-
not Sesame Street. So
I don't know. I don't know.
who
All
plays
right.
the Grouch?
It must be because the Iraqis have found Waldo.
They might have. I don't know. How about this one? 20 million on the Fertilize Right initiative to advance fertilizer use in Pakistan, Vietnam, Colombia, and Brazil. How about this one? Because you know what that sounds like to
Wait,
me?
they use fertilizer there.
Well,
So
but you know what that sounds like to me? That sounds to me like a fertilizer company marketing fund. That's what that sounds like to me.
Valid.
Well, it's got to be because, they're banning the use of fertilizers in practically all of Europe, and we're starting to ban the use of fertilizers in this country. So the fertilizer company's got to go somewhere.
I've seen people in Asian countries like copping a squat and doing a number 2 in the middle of a rice field. They fertilize in their own way.
It's funny because it's true, but I'm wondering why we are paying for the marketing fund for these massive companies in
Hey, quid pro
foreign
quo.
countries. All right. Here's maybe the one that gets me the most. 10 billion.
Bubba.
Billion with a B on the maintenance, leasing, and furnishing of mostly empty buildings.
Empty government building.
Yeah, empty government. Yeah, this is government. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maintenance.
Because
Leasing.
nobody's going to work anymore. So we have all these empty buildings.
That the government is leasing and paying for and essentially not being used, which means they're also paying for
Electricity.
water, electricity,
sewer,
water, sewer.
alarm company, phones. They're unmanned.
Keep going.
Because their contracts say they have to maintain the building, not
Correct.
the owner of the building.
Correct.
That's
So-
a great gig. Like I tell you what.
Oh, if I had an empty building and I could lease it to the government to do nothing with it, make them take care of it, and I sit on it. Here's what I wonder. I wonder how many politicians own real estate and they're commercial realtors for big buildings. That's what I wonder.
That's a good question.
Because now you got to start to wonder who got all those contracts? Who is getting all those funds? So if I go buy,
You mean
and-
like someone who owns a bunch of hotels and got a bunch of millions and millions of dollars for the Ukraine, all of a sudden made out with great money? Oh,
who would that be, Caleb?
I mean, I'm not going to talk about Nancy Pelosi on the air. But
Well, I mean, I don't know why we would talk about Nancy Pelosi. I mean, we're talking about somebody who's been in Congress making $174,000 a year and now is worth hundreds of millions of
Yeah.
dollars. I'm trying to figure out how that math carry the one plus
Who
the,
also has
the greatest stock record.
oh, phenomenal.
oh
Yeah.
absolute family ties into the mafia
Well, and that goes way
way back.
Way back.
I'm just still trying to figure out how a $10,000 entry even got on this list.
The $10,000 entry, I'm not even bothering with because 10,000, I'm like,
It's a drop in the bucket, but you know what?
Yeah.
Someone threw their name in the hat.
I'm actually going to search the
They
10,000.
may have pissed off.
Oh yeah,
some
we're not
other
going down
person.
that one, Danny. We're not going down.
I'm
Oh.
sorry. I learned to ice skate on a little backwater slough off the Illinois
Wait, now
River
I'm
in the
curious.
wintertime.
Yeah, well, you know what? We're not going to talk about being paid $10,000 to play dress up and learn to ice skate at the same time. That's just a whole nother.
Wait, are they dressing up like Sesame Street characters?
Yeah.
Some of them might be. You never know.
Tickle me, Elmo.
We just wore nice, we just wore nice warm clothes and played hockey.
Again, please don't believe us. You can go find this on Fox News. Rand Paul actually ran this down.
Mhm.
We have a saying on this show. Is it possible? Is it probable? And then once we start to see coincidence after coincidence after coincidence after coincidence, it's no longer coincidence. It becomes evidence. These spending bills, which was another great story that we saw come in through 2024, because we didn't even get really a chance to address the continuing resolution that went from like 1,600 pages
Oh,
down to like 115 pages.
well, it didn't go that fast. It went like 16,000 to 1,600 to 167 or something ridiculous.
And the things that were taken out,
Oh my God.
like immunity for Congress on all these
Yes.
things that they might have
Yes.
done. I mean, it just goes to show how much stuff they're doing behind our backs because we are not paying attention.
I'll only vote yes if my grandchildren's grandchildren get $100,000 a year from the government. That's it. That's all it'll cost you.
So you mean somebody read it before it was passed?
Oh, well, that's
There
the
you go,
really
bringing
fun
old Nancy
part.
into this again.
That's the whole fun
Wow.
part.
I'm
Because
sure,
Jonathan-
I'm sure Nancy wasn't one of the ones that read it.
Hell,
Jonathan, you know you have to pass it so you can then read it
And find out what's
and find out what's
that's
in
what.
it.
That's how it works in your
Silly
business,
me.
isn't it? Like that's what you do with your business. You just write the check.
Well,
it's blank.
Absolutely.
right.
I buy all kind of stuff
Yeah.
before I
But
know
this-
I'm going to make a dollar.
But
right?
this goes back to the discussion we were having about your favorite story of 2024, which is the ability to catch a rocket out of the air. And you said it's amazing how quickly private entity can do this. and government can't. This is why. Because privately, Jonathan, you have to read everything when you own a business. You've got to sit down and look at it and go, okay, what's the financial repercussions if this happens, if that doesn't happen, if this doesn't happen, if that does happen? The government just signs it and goes, yeah, we'll figure it out later. We're spending somebody else's money. That's a problem.
Well, they don't care because it's someone else's money. They're like, you know what? We spent $4 million this year. Next year we'll ask for $2 million more because we spent all the $4 million. Not that we wasted $3 million of it.
Caleb,
We just want $2 million more.
I'm going to disagree. I don't think that's the case. I don't think they keep spending it because it's somebody else's money. I think they keep spending it because a lot of that money is coming back to them. I think this is one big, they say everything's cyclical, including how the government spends cash. It starts getting spent in Congress and it gets spent to people in Congress.
It's twofold. It's somebody else's money coming back to them.
Correct. And this is the problem. What's the old saying? The problem with democracy is that once the masses realize they can vote themselves huge swaths of the public coffers, it's over. I think what we have seen is that it's not the masses voting themselves huge swaths of the public coffer. I think it's the minorities that have gotten elected that are voting themselves huge paydays out of public coffers that they hide it and they masquerade it and they cover it up. They put lipstick on that pig and they call it pretty. But it's still a pig and it's still sitting in their backyard, not yours. And I think that is ultimately the biggest problem. And it's why we need to keep making sure that everybody hears about yours and mine and everybody else's implicit bias. There are no huge helpings of Bovir here in the TSPL. That's the top secret podcast layer. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon. This is hour 2 of Implicit Bias. Always more fun. As yes, we told you it's on the bingo card. Cow farts, people are actually concerned about this. Before we get to that, though, the crew here in the TSPL, and that's crew with a K, Caleb Morse, the rustic renegade in the chair, much like mine. At the bar, Danny Izo sitting on your left, Jonathan Broussard sitting on your right, and we are partaking of the Forbidden series, which, by the way, yes, the small batch is delicious.
Told you.
The single barrel, oh my.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh my. Get them at Mr. Lester's Steakhouse, the only 5-star restaurant between New Orleans and Houston, down at Cypress Bayou Casino. $15 a pour, $40 for the flight.
Even if they don't remember what it is, just say, pour me that fancy bottle.
Yeah, because the bottles, as you can see, are absolutely beautiful. So Mr. Lester's is doing everything they can to reduce bovine methane emissions.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, on a nightly basis, right? Every night they're open, they are reducing the amount of bovine methane emissions. What should we call that? BMEs, bovine methane emissions, BMEs from here on out, right? Because, they're going to feed you a tasty steak. But here's the crazy part. Does anybody want to take a wild guess who the expert, and we talked about the experts earlier on this show, who the expert is that's telling us that we need to be concerned about BMEs?
Look, to be truthful, he owns a metric ton of farmland.
He does.
Now, he's not running the farm. He's not running the ranches.
He just bought because he has
just
enough
bought
money.
them. Yeah.
He just has enough money. But who is that guy we're talking about? Anybody want to help out the rest of the crew? Walker, do you know
Walker
who it
knows.
is? Did
Walker
you actually
knows.
read the
Yeah.
article?
No, he knows. I can see it in his face.
Walker, who is it? Because you read the article.
I'm not gonna lie.
We knew this. We knew you didn't read the article. All right. At the bar.
Big Bad Bill.
Mr. William Gates.
Yep. Bill Gates. So the guy who made his money in software is now, well, we got to remember, he went from software expert to vaccine expert.
Right.
Yeah.
From vaccine expert to fart expert.
No, you're skipping the human population expert. Where
Well, this is true, but that was part of the vaccine thing.
yeah, valid.
Because he said that he would use vaccines to
to control
decrease
the
population.
to decrease
Yes.
it by 2/3.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's using this for the bovine. Less people will eat less beef.
Well, and part of what he said when he did this was his pitch on what's the
Well, it's climate change is
no,
what
his-
he's saying.
Yeah, but his pitch on what's the meat that he owns? He owns two different companies.
Well, so he's also
Impossible.
Yeah, there's a twofold pitch here. Number one is that there is a feed that apparently has been developed
Mhm.
that will reduce the methane production in cattle.
It reduces the gassiness of your cow.
So forget feeding a cow what a cow has eaten since the dawn of time.
That God created them to eat.
Correct. So I
We know
love
better.
the I
Look,
love
we
the,
know better than God at this point in time, right? That's
I-
what he's saying.
I love the people who talk about I want all natural, but I want us to create a feed for cattle that isn't natural.
And who created this feed? Is his name in?
Is it? I don't know. Is it? I mean,
I don't know.
it might be. I'm sure
I'm
he's
willing
got
to
something
bet
on
you
the
that
patent.
he's heavily invested in
I would dare
less
say-
farts.
I'm willing to bet
.com.
he's heavily invested, and his name doesn't appear anywhere.
Well, that's probably a big part of it.
And look, I would be hard pressed if we sat down and I don't even want to taste it. If you're like, look, Caleb, this is the impossible or the fake meat, because that's the other thing he pushes is synthetic meat. It's like, this is the fake meat, or you can have this cow that was raised on a ranch, that had a good life, that was put down humanely, and was grass fed. Give me that, right? Give me that, because what we can make and replicate and genetically modify is not the same thing.
Not even close.
You know,
I'm
and-
sorry. I don't want meat that comes out of a 3D printer.
Yeah.
Which is exactly how they make this fake meat. Agreed.
And when you look at like hunting, when you go out and you harvest your own meat, you harvest your own game, that meat tastes wonderful, right?
Yes.
Because you know what it ate, you know the area it's from, you worked it, you hunted it, you harvested it. Same thing with cattle. Good ranchers work it and they harvest it. Why? Because they want to do this for generations. They're not in it for the short game. They want to do it long term. And that's why when you hear people complaining about the treatment of cows, the animal cruelty and all this other stuff, these are not the typical ranchers. Typical ranchers want this to last forever because they produce a good steak. Right. And I love a good dead cow.
They taste delicious. They do. But the ultimate point here that I just can't get around is in order for us to apparently take care of Mother Nature, we have to be unnatural to do it. That circular logic just does nothing for me because it's like, wait a minute. You either believe in the principle of natural or you don't.
Well, you know they're not feeding them like a real grass.
No. You
It's
know that
something
this
synthetic. They're going to put in, it's not wheat, it's not barley, it's not rye. You know, it's none of the things that we enjoy. They're like, you know what? We took hydrogen disulfide and we put in chlorine and this and that.
I'm going to argue with you just a bit because I guarantee you that there's probably some wheat, some barley with some of the cattle because Wagyu is fed a ritual diet that does include beer.
Okay.
It
augments.
does include beer.
You're right.
It includes beer and a massage
I yield.
and produces the most delicious cows. on the
Wonderful
planet.
steak. Ground meat's not that good.
No, agreed.
It's way too fat.
And the steak, you can't even eat a whole bunch because there's so much fat.
God, it's so nice though.
While the flavor is there, man, give you the meat sweats real
Oh
quick.
yeah, that's a fillet, like 6 to 8 ounces.
Yeah.
You know, that's about all you got.
But absolutely fantastic. And a Wagyu ribeye, the flavor on it is just, but you don't need a big, massive ribeye like
I'm
we
salivating.
like to cook. Yeah. Anyway, so you've got Bill Gates out here propagating this, and I'm going, does no one also see the conflict of interest that Bill Gates has here?
No, why would we? Why would we care that he talks bad about cow flatulence when he has like 17 jets and 2 mega yachts?
How about this one?
I made those numbers up.
No, I never would have guessed that, Caleb. How about this? How about we look at the flatulence that comes from human beings and those who are not contributing to the rest of us, those who are just taking from the rest of us?
Wait, fart sniffers?
Wait, what?
You said we went from flatulence to taking from the rest of us.
I don't mean taking farts from the rest of us. I mean
okay. Specificity.
specificity.
It's hard to say right.
Yeah, especially when you're over there pouring 2 fingers at a time. No, seriously though. And that's a joke. I would never think. But I mean, where does this stop? Right? So first of all, cows fart. Well, don't dogs fart? Don't cats fart? I mean, although we did spend $10 million on drilling holes in cats' heads.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. If you missed that, find us on our socials. So you've got dogs, cats, let's see, buffalo. So bison probably fart. This is the one that really gets me.
Wouldn't there be more fish that do that than anything else?
Probably. How about this though? Remember, They are trying to say that we are warming from a time when we were cooler. When we were cooler, do we know how many head of bison were on the plains in the United States?
Way more than there are now.
Way more than now.
Those delicious animals.
Oh, yes, they are. But I mean, and wouldn't, because they're significantly larger than cattle, that would be a significantly
Valid
larger volume of methane from the expulsion of the rear end of the animal at once.
Valid point. I believe there was at one point a herd across North America was like 100,000 strong.
Oh, I thought it was larger than that.
It might have been.
I thought there was one herd that was 500,000.
It could easily have been. It was beyond my time.
I mean, you got to think at one point when they were building the railroads, they literally, Buffalo Bill would sit in a rail car and just with a rifle and ammunition and just indiscriminately shoot every bison he saw for the heck of it, just to get them out of the way because they were viewed as a nuisance animal.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of nuisance animal, nutrias probably for it. I would think nutrias.
That's a herbivore.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Oh, hogs.
Herbivore or a fiber.
Correct.
If you go to your doctor and you have high cholesterol, which I found out recently, they will tell you to eat more fiber. And what does fiber do to your body?
It produces methane gas. Yeah, it does.
So are they going to change the whole scope of the medical field as to, you could have that heart attack as long as it doesn't affect the environment.
Yeah.
We don't care if you die of a heart attack. We do care if you break wind.
Just go peacefully.
And look, holding it in may create that heart attack. It might also create the final segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias, where we talk about people doing what sounds impossible, but certainly is not, right after this. Final segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias, and Caleb Morse, thank God that was during the commercial. I'm just saying, thank you, dear Lord. Thank you, sweet baby Jesus.
Well, I was just really taken back by Walker's face because he visualized what I said.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did. I saw it in your face.
What, he smiled?
Oh, most definitely.
We're sorry for the inside joke. Just trust me, it was a foul comment from Caleb that Walker visualized and smiled about. And all right. So that is the Rustic Renegade. He is Caleb Morse. At the bar, we have Danny Izzo. We have Jonathan Broussard here this week. We're just having tons of fun as we are engaging in more weekly whiskeys and recognizing that what we think is impossible actually isn't. So this is where Caleb comes in because he is one of our resident veterans. He is also our resident gun distributor. He is our resident firearms expert, security expert. And if you would have told me that there is someone out there who actually shoots skeet with a pistol, I'd have kind of laughed at you. And then I saw the video and I went, okay, this video is not, and I'll give the disclaimer. Number one, the video is not AI. It is not AI. It is real.
It is edited.
Well, it is edited. But the second part of it is he's actually not shooting skeet traditionally as you would think skeet coming across at the range. He's shooting clays that are coming at him at short range.
It's the reverse from a duck, right? So
he's still shooting it with a pistol or a rifle.
Pistol and a rifle. And look, something to understand before anyone tries this, range is very different.
Yes.
Okay, so if you're going to try to shoot skeet, get some rat shot first, 9mm, 357, 38, whatever it is, limited range. If you're going to try it with 9mm, 44 mag, whatever it is, you're talking about a mile or so worth of range. So be responsible. Don't try this at home. And I have seen this before in person. I really have. Years ago when I was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado, I was up there shooting skeet, and there was a guy next to us shooting skeet with a bolt action 22.
So I'm going to ask, was he shooting traditional way or was he shooting?
Traditional. Now this one, look, once you learn the pattern, especially for this, whenever it's coming right at you, okay, I have to shoot here to hit it. So it can be done. You still have to be a really good shot. Really good shot. Not impossible. But the average shooter who gets
highly improbable.
Oh, highly improbable. The average shooter who gets a bad shot on a deer 3 times out of the year, and that's the only time they shoot the rifle, don't try this.
No, so I am not going to be trying this. Let's just be clear. I am not trying this. But as I watch it, so to your point, the thought that entered my mind was, He's in a fixed distance.
Mhm.
He's at a fixed location, at a fixed height. He knows the trajectory that the clay is coming out.
Wait, he's calling
So
it.
literally
He's telling when to go.
all he has to do is know, here's my spot. And he is at times drawing to a spot, and he's able to actually put the bead on that
Yep.
spot, and
He
he's
knows-
timing it out and timing it
Yep,
right.
Call it, pull the trigger. And there was an instance, and I have probably 3 witnesses on this. It happened one time. I was carrying my 1911 years ago. I was probably 19 years old, and we were hitting skeet in Washington, Louisiana, and ran out of ammo with my shotgun. Called pull, drew from the holster, got it. I tried for probably 500 rounds to do it again, and couldn't get it. I got it on the first shot. The next 500 missed them all. So, it's hard.
Difficult,
This is not easy.
but not impossible if we
No.
really set our minds to
Yeah.
it. At the bar, what are we thinking?
I'm thinking this guy's practicing and preparing for the impending, correct me if I'm wrong, UAA invasion.
Oh, the
Yeah.
UAP invasion, whatever it
UAP,
is.
yeah.
Either that or look,
Yeah.
he's practicing to go to Ukraine to shoot drones down.
Yeah, it could be. Could be. I mean, you're talking. So a sporting clay is what, 2.5 inches around?
Well, they make smaller ones, but they're about 4.5, 5
4.5.
inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that's moving at 30, 40 miles an hour, maybe faster. That's
Depending on who you talk to, it's bigger than average.
We've heard this before.
yeah, because we talked to your wife. Anyway, the sphere that you're shooting at, right? The circumference, the diameter you're shooting at, moving at that range, it's not easy. I'm thinking he's waiting on the zombie apocalypse. He's going to try and headshot every zombie he can find. Just the amount of training that it has to have, or that he has to have to go through this. You're talking hundreds of thousands of
Oh, yeah.
rounds through a pistol.
That's a lot of time on the range, just a lot of practice. That's saying, look, I'm tired of shooting static targets. Let's step it up. And what's next? And just finding the next thing that he can do to better his shooting skills.
Danny, you want to chime in? I see you leaning in.
I'm thinking, I want to be next to this guy when the zombie apocalypse happens.
Yeah. I don't want to be next. I want to be behind him. I don't need to be next to him. Just put me behind him.
Just close.
Yeah, close enough that if they're coming for me, he's going to have to worry about them.
Let me hand him rounds so he don't run out.
Correct. I'll just sit here and load magazines. You just keep firing. What never ceases to amaze me, though, are some of the guys, and we've seen it on Top Shot, things of that nature. When you start talking about pistols and pistol rounds, how difficult it is. I mean, it's not, the average person can't pick up a sighted-in rifle and from a standing position, so freehand, shoot and hit the bullseye at 100 yards. Even though if you put that rifle in a vise where it's locked down at 100 yards and you pull the trigger with a rope, it's going to hit that bullseye. Doing it freehand because of breathing, because of biorhythms, because of your pulse.
Yep, the pulse is a big part.
The whole 9
Breathing,
yards.
Trigger squeeze, all that. And you look at the great shooters we've had in our time frame. Look, Bob Munden, phenomenal single action shooter. Jerry Micklick, and even one of our state senators, Blake Miguez.
Yeah.
Phenomenal shooter, right? And these guys have a ton of practice. That's what it comes down to, is a ton of practice. Because if you work something long enough, you become good at it, especially in this kind of skill. You may not be great, but you become good. And this guy has a ton of rounds downrange, a ton of practice. And your average shooter, look at Louisiana where we have our concealed carry permit. You have to renew it every 5 years. Your average shooter shoots 36 rounds in 5 years because that's what the qualification is. And they wonder why it's hard.
Practice, which is why we practice with whiskey, right? And people don't understand because we've gotten the comment, how do you guys do this? You do a 2-hour show
We hydrate.
where you're sampling weekly whiskeys. We eat, we hydrate, and we know that we're not doing shots in the corner like Walker so that we're throwing up after shows.
That's only happened twice.
I was gonna,
And sometimes we dehydrate.
yeah. I was gonna claim it was a joke for Walker, even though it wasn't. But that's a whole nother story, Walker. And we know why. We know why Tug Aaron David, who is making this look as good as we do on video, which it really isn't great because it's us. It's not Aaron. Aaron does a great job of making us look, I guess, palatable at some point. It's why he doesn't drink, right? We get it. because this isn't always for the faint of heart. And we've had people that we've had to drive home. It happens. But the whole point is, if you know how to deal with it, it all becomes iocane poison,
Ooh.
right?
Ooh, really
Where
nice segue.
you build up your tolerance, you understand how to deal with it, how to handle it. For those who don't understand the reference, please go look up iocane powder.
The Princess
Poison.
Bride.
Correct. It's a Princess Bride reference where he's challenged by the smartest man alive,
A Sicilian.
yes, to figure out which cup has poison in it. And I hate to shock you here and spoil this, but he puts poison in both cups. He's just made himself immune to the powder because he's built up a slow tolerance to it. That practice, he practiced with it. That practice, that's what makes everything happen, which is why we hope that you will practice listening to Implicit Bias, finding us on your social medias, Facebook, X, YouTube, Insta. And it's why we hope that you never shy away from everything that is your implicit bias. We'll see you in 7. Have a great week.